Okay, there is a little bit of a delay there. So I paused before, so sorry about the pause. I've been meaning to record this. I thought I already had, but it turns out I haven't, and I can't find the video. So I thought I'd just record another one for you guys. How to set a sacred space and your ceremony for your ceremonies, for my moon ceremonies, if you're joining me for the new moon or the full moon, or if you just want to create a sacred space in your space at home while you meditate, just for you. It doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be lots and lots of things and collecting lots of things. It can be, it's entirely up to you, and it's entirely personal. For me, the thing that I want to stress, and this might be very different to the way other people have said this, it's the intention behind what you're doing, the clearing that energetic space. So if you're walking around the house with a joss stick or a candle, or you're burning some sage and you're going through, or you've got singing bowls playing, or you're actually playing the singing bowls in your house, these are all things you can do to clear your space and your home and your environment. So one of the things that I do constantly in here, because I do lots of my moon ceremonies from this desk here in my office, if I'm not outside, and I haven't got the function at the moment to with the I have got one, but I haven't had it set up so it does it and it streams it from outside yet. But when I was doing them outside, I was doing them from my phone. Slightly different. You've got nature, you're grounding. You want to then set the environment as well. If there's lots of people being in the room or being in the area where you're going to do your ceremony, then you are, it's good for you to then mentally, with your mind, set the intention. And even if you want to take it further, you can call in the directions and call in the sacred whatever to align with your beliefs, depending on what you are, and that will be different depending on what culture or ritual you're actually doing. So this is just I'm just gonna go through the basics. So that would obviously be more in depth and calling in like you would in a Wiccan fashion. But for a moon ceremony that you're doing at home and you want a space and you're just clearing, I use sage, I use lavender. I have this big, for burning our rituals when we do our fire ceremonies, I've got this lovely big pestle and mortar, obviously fireproof, and I use this to stub it out, and I tend to do that if I'm doing stuff inside. One of the things that's important is to, once you've burnt your intentions, that when you do it, whether you do it the new moon or you do it the full moon, whenever you're doing any burning rituals, always the embers need to go to the earth. You need to always put them out. One of the things that I learned, and I learned from Chloe, from Keshinomi, from when we were doing our sound baths and our singing ceremonies when we were able to meet, is that you also are meant to have an open window or somewhere for that energy to go. So I found, I was saying, oh God, every time I cleanse the house, a glass smashes. Because it goes into something, it cleanses, it moves. Think of it as transforming. Energy doesn't disappear, it changes, it transforms. So you're transforming that energy, so you're clearing it out, which is why when you burn it, you're taking and making that intention and you're putting it to the earth, so it's back to nature, back to where it's come from once it's came, and it's that cycle. And if you're doing these ceremonies and you're following that cyclical way of living, that's part of the mentalism behind that, the thinking and the intention behind what we do. Everything has an intention, and it's not just me saying this, and it's not just, well, that's the right way or this is the right way, because I think of it in terms of these cultures have done these things for thousands of years. So you've built up a collective consciousness that's attached to these herbs, to the other thing, to like the cacao, if you have cacao. So it's things that you can utilize within that energy of what you're doing. And so I would say I use things like frankincense, sage, but you can use different herbs, and you can look up I learnt this at the weekend from the Kent Goddess group, so it's gone from that for correspondence of what each of those represent. Basically the properties is what I've always called them, but different aspects of what attributes that are associated with those energies for if you're doing burning, for example. So that's one we spoke about. And I mentioned sound. So sound in cleansing yourself as well. So the sounds like little feet, sounds like singing bowls, but if you don't play the bowls, you can play music of the bowls. Sound as in and vibration of your body, you becoming the actual resonant vessel that you're expressing that sound for the frequency to clear the area that you're in. And salt is another one. I was going to say, moving on from sound, I was trying to think what was the other one. Well, salt come to mind, but sound meaning singing and vibration and music. It's often said that certain times of year, like at spring, you should play loud music, the vibration to clear the air, and to, I'd say, music that resonates with a high vibration, that's come from someone singing, that's been channeled, that's with love. And I play this in my home quite often. So this space in particular, which is what I was leading on to before I got distracted from myself, is quite often cleanse of that is in it. But movement and energy, I do my qigong in here, so this is, again, I do that when I'm cleansing my aura, so this space is generally quite clear. But those are all things that you can do for the space that you might want to think about for where you are, but having somewhere that's for you, that's the intention, and setting the tone for your evening. So when you're joining me for the ceremony, you might want to bring along some ceremonial cacao. This has not got cacao in it at the moment. I do consume it daily. This is barley, wheat barley, because I'm cleansing, and obviously cleansing yourself in that way. So leading up to a new moon or leading up to a full moon, depending on when you do this, and your own body cycles, which is different depending on you. You'll know, as a woman, you know, because your periods sync to different aspects. You'll know when you've got energy, when you've not. And if you're not sure, I recommend in a diary, keeping a diary of when you've got your high points, when you're high energy, when you're feeling like, I don't want to get out of bed today, I feel really low. Excuse me, hang on. Well, I guess my laughter was to say cleansing energy. My house is definitely full of kids laughing and that joy. So that's another kind of sound vibration in itself, somewhere where you meet the actual attributes of that room, what you're doing. So for me, it's working and ceremonial in here. It has the two aspects of that. It's got that energy. So your bedroom might have attachment. This is where you relax. It's where you would like to do your ceremony, because that's where you associate relaxing in that time. So different lights is on, but it's different aspects of where you want to perform your ceremony. So consider these things beforehand. Candle, if you want to do the fire ceremony and do your intentions, you can do it afterwards. I always make allowances, because you haven't seen this video if you're not sure what you're doing when I talk through, but those are things that you can do to make your evening, if you're doing it with friends or as a couple, for example with the Valentine's workshop or the relationship workshops, and that you do together. So you want to make space and you want to make the room have that sensual area. So think about the essential oils, so smells, and how you would bring that in to make it your ceremony, and bring in what you're drawn to. So different smells associated, like we said, about the attributes or the aspects of that. So candles, I tend to burn, as I said, I've got a burner here where you can put oils, you can put things like resins and stuff to burn with little tea lights. Think about whether they're vegan friendly is what I would add, as I'm trying to promote those businesses that are sustainable and more ethical. So bear that in mind. Not a lot of people know they're not vegan friendly, candles themselves, so if you use them. If you haven't got an altar, it's a spiritual aspect that people think, oh no, that's a bit too religious for me. But actually an altar can be somewhere that is just where you put your intentions. For example, behind me now, and I consider myself a spiritual person, not a religious person. I like the science and the aspects of each of those, the divine feminine and the goddess. I had this with my mum's. I don't know if you can see it behind it as Jesus and Mary, but I'm not Christian, and I see this as more divine feminine and divine masculine. So, and it has an attachment to my mum, who was a Christian, but it's got a different resonance for me, and it's re-signified for me in how I use it. So you might have the picture of the goddess, or Goddess Kali, or Mary Magdalene, or of Buddha, and I too have Buddha down there, and I'm mixed race. I've got little things from my Asian side of my family that I've brought into that as well, and obviously I've got my blessings and things you consider could be considered or construed as a blessing, or wish, our intention. And it could just be that you have, like I have here, got my little packs that I did. This was my one that I did for the pack, so it's my affirmation board, my vision board I have up there with my crystals. So those are all things that you can, she says, dropping it now, it needs to go back up, certain crystals that you want to bring. I'd say go with what your gut says when you're drawn to something, if you have the feel of it, and go with what feels right, because generally what we're drawn to is a tendency of what we're lacking or what we need. It's like, or it's what we need to work with and we need to release. So like we quite often, it's the opposite colour of what we need, or we're repelled by sometimes what we need. So think about, if something really repels you, then why. Look up the meanings if you are really, really repelled or really, really drawn to something. Tuning into that into instinct and your insight, which around the time of the full moon and the new moon, very, very important. So hopefully that'll help you and set you up for the evening. If you're joining me for the new moon or the full moon ceremonies, or if it's just for one of my vision board workshops, however you're joining me, hopefully this, or whether even if you're just out there and you're viewing this video where it's on Facebook, in the ethers, so to speak, then hopefully for your own ceremony, this is something you can do for your practice if you follow the Cyclic way of living, or even just for your meditation on a daily way. I use ritual, what would be considered as ritual, throughout my day, every day, be it sound, vibration. More importantly now, more than ever, I think, the things that I advise people to do, I'm having to make sure I do those things to stay in my access and stay in alignment, by chanting, by meditating, my Qigong practice, things like that. So whatever it is you can do for your space throughout the day, it's just, then maybe you're only doing it once a week, or you're doing it once a month. If you're following that, it's keeping that. It's like tidying up your desk at the end of your day, clearing your mind, which is another thing, your space around you and the objects, and getting into the mindset, which is why I call my workshops neurological goal setting, because we are tapping into that subconscious aspect of how we live and how we be. So thank you for your time. I'm Teresa Jande from Tree Heart Art Design Authentic, or Love Authentic Me, on YouTube and Facebook pages of the same name. I'm a big fan of nature, on Nature Fan Live Love Lead page, so feel free, if you have a sustainable or ethical business, to share your stuff on there. I'm championing those people. And if you like art that's energetically made, then I'm an artist as well. I'm Teresa Jande, artist and designer, so check me out on those areas. There's my little bit about me, and hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, hit the like button, it helps me get viewed by more, and I look forward to seeing you in one of my workshops virtually, and if not in the physical, hopefully very soon. Thank you for your time.